Thank you so much for coming in. You described this as a marriage of the past and present through music. Yes. Talk us through that marriage.
I mean, after more than 7 years of research around the indigenous music, I've been observing that all these events around Heritage Day, Africa Month, we have never had an educational element. It's been always about celebrating. So I took a decision that on these shows, they're going to be like a split between a performance and a lecture. If we look at 1958 in Accra, under the leadership of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, few countries gathered on the 15th of April in pursuit of freedom against from the colonial system at that time. Then later, in 1963, more than 30 countries gathered in Addis Ababa under the leadership of Haile Selassie. And even Zimbabwe at the time was still Southern Rhodesia at the time. Then they decided to anoint or to ordain the 25th of May as Africa Day, encouraging other countries to get out of colonialism. But now we never get time to explain why are we celebrating this particular day. So the journey of this continent need to be shared so that we have a clear understanding why are we celebrating. In fact, we are not celebrating, we are commemorating this day.
Mm-hmm. But how do you go about that merge, the merge of music,
yes,
and at the same time the lecture aspect where you are detailing the history of the day without making it boring for people who would say, look, I've just come here for the good sounds and to hear Mbuso sing, and I don't want too much speaking?
I think it's logical explanation behind our histories. I think before it has been bluntly done, and it's too formal and say, and now we are speaking about the continent. So, but I think it has to be natural, and you need to interest people with information that they need on their daily lives. I'll give you an example. What is the distinction between history, culture, and heritage? We need to understand that history comes in as an intervention to emphasize important parts of our lives. Then culture is born. Later, heritage is born. What is heritage? What I'm wearing, the colors I'm wearing, So if you know about yourself, especially if you are rooted on your culture, I don't think things will go wrong in your life. But when you do not know your culture, you will be ruled by any ideology that comes your way.
But at that ideological level, yes, and the documenting of our history,
yes,
it speaks, doesn't it, to how we need to make this an everyday campaign, and we cannot limit it to just May as Africa Month or the 25th as Africa Day.
25th is important because it's historical. As I said earlier, that it was OAU at the time before it became AU. In 1963, 25th of December, of May, it was the day when some of the countries retained their freedom from colonial. So we can never, look down upon that beautiful history and the journey of Africa. It is very important for us to commemorate that. And again, Africa still facing, so many, challenges: tribalism, colony, the xenophobia. I'm from KZN, and you would hear someone saying, but if they knew their history, they would understand around 1820, so Shangane, Gazigote from Nongoma, Gagasa, he moved with Zwangendaba to a place called Ebilene today. It's Bilabila in Limpopo. And then they fought. Zwangendaba continued to migrate until it got to a place called Zambia today. We have Ngonis. And then Usoshangana continued to fight and conquered so many nations. And then later he said, Gasomkhulu. And then we have Gazangulu today.
And then given the richness of the history, just in the brief explanation that you've given us, how do you go about selecting what to include and what to leave out on the 25th?
I think we just need to touch or focus on the issue of the formation of identity. When our forefathers moved from Central Africa, Begudla, Inal River coming northwards and southwards, what happened, and who are we? If we call ourselves Abantu, who are we? And then another question that we need to ask ourselves is, being Zulu is something to become, or is it something that you should be? it's a process, because 200 years ago, we were not Zulus, we were Ngunis. Before we were Ngunis, we were Abantu. So now you can't go around and kill someone on the basis of ethnicity. We need to acknowledge that we are human beings, we are Africans, we have brown skin. Just fall in love with an Africanness. When I see you as my brother and say, oh man, this is an African brother, I love you, you know. So African Month should be instrumentalized to ascribe value to our culture and explain what are these values, because there are paradoxical issues around what is culture. One would say, is it is a culture? And the other question, is it culture or is it a choice?
Okay, so
yes.
We'll definitely have you in for a much longer conversation perhaps on the day. But yes. For now, Mbuso Khoza, thank you so much for your time. Mbuso and the African Heritage Ensemble will put on a show for you at the Joburg Theatre Mandela stage on the 25th of this month.